Hello, and welcome to Unity of Fredericksburg. My name is Andrea, and I am pleased to welcome all of you to the Unity of Fredericksburg weekly online gathering. At Unity of Fredericksburg, we are advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through unity, a positive path for spiritual living. We thank those of you watching on YouTube, live or later, and invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're able to attend live, we encourage you to join us in the Zoom community room for the full Sunday morning experience, including music, prayer, and connection. Our weekly newsletter includes the Sunday service link, and you can subscribe to receive that on our website at uofva.org. For everyone local to Central Virginia, Unity of Fredericksburg offers a variety of fun and enriching in-service gatherings every month. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter at uofva.org for all the details. Our message and meditation today comes in the form of a pre-recorded video from Unity minister and award-winning author, Reverend Paul Roach. Paul is a native of Wales in the United Kingdom and a graduate of Jesus College, Oxford University. Paul served as the senior minister at Unity of Fort Worth from 1988 until retiring in 2018. And he hosted a podcast entitled World Spirituality with Reverend Paul John Roach for 14 years, interviewing spiritual leaders and authors from around the world. Paul is the author of the award-winning book, Unity and World Religions, which focuses on the perennial philosophy within all spiritual traditions. He is currently working on a second book about his journey to India in 1976. Paul believes joy, laughter, and gratitude are essential qualities on the spiritual path. And now, here is Reverend Paul Roach.
So hello there, I'm Paul John Roach, Unity Minister and author of the Unity book, Unity and World Religions. And this is part 3 in our series focusing on the golden thread of universal truth. And this week, our focus will be particularly on interfaith and unity. I think what we've learned so far from our series is that the commonalities between religions is greater than what separates them. At least that's my attempt to demonstrate that truth, that fact. But I think it does come forth in what we've talked about so far. That doesn't mean that all religions are the same. The diversity actually is good, valuable, and necessary, and that we can learn from each other, because that's the whole idea behind diversity, to celebrate it. But underlying everything is that common purpose, that core understanding of universal truth. Again, it's like everyone loves differently, but the essence is still love, right? That's the commonality, and yet we celebrate it and how it shows up in many various ways. William James, the great philosopher, religious philosopher of the 19th century, pointed out that there were two tendencies within religion. One pointed to a healthy-mindedness, and the other to a toxicity or a sick soul. And I think this is a useful polarity that we can use today. Diversity is healthy, but when it devolves into separation and judgment, then we have a problem. And so this is what we're attempting to solve in terms of interfaith. If it's my religion, my way, and I'm better than yours, then this is evidence really of a toxicity or a sickness of the soul, rather than a healthy-mindedness. A healthy-mindedness celebrates diversity, but looks for commonality. So we see that divisiveness, unfortunately, in many religions today, especially in their fundamentalist aspects, whether that be Christianity or Islam, Hinduism, or Judaism. And unfortunately, we can often see it even in our own unity, yeah, that sometimes we could separate ourselves off from each other. There's misunderstandings. Some people want to go back to the core teachings of Charles Fillmore. Some want to be more Christian than others. Some embrace universalism. And it can get a little bitter sometimes, which is unfortunate because we need to celebrate the diversity of our movement, which is part of its health, its healthy mindedness. So the purpose of interfaith, as I understand it, is to counter these divisions and this divisiveness and offer a higher way, sort of a four-part flow here. It's a way that allows for differences. That's number one. As we're saying, diversity and difference is okay. Accepts them for what they are, without trying to force them to be something else. Celebrates at the same time commonality, and works together to embrace and to love. So there's a marrying there. There's a marrying of the differences and the diversity with an acceptance, and then with a practical step of how do we come together in spite of our differences or in celebration of our diversity. And this is, as William James would say, healthy minded, right? It's a helpful way to approach the world. So what does interfaith rest upon? I offer 10 things and see what you think. I'm sure there's more, but this has been some food for thought. Number one, a common humanity. And it's not the idea of a common understanding of divinity or anything like that, or a common understanding of God. No, we start with our common humanity, that we're all human beings on this planet, and we share that. And we have to get along in that context. And so to share a common humanity is crucially important because all human beings go through the same things, right? They may do it in different ways. My life might be unique to me and yours to you, but we still go through the same joys and sorrows, the losses that we face, the joys that we celebrate, the love for our children. So there's a common humanity there. And I think that's the beginning of interfaith. Second is the essential nature of love, because as we said, as we love our children, so we know that all human beings, unless they're extremely aberrant, love their children. We love our families. We love those that are similar to us, but we also try and extend to those who are not similar to us. So there's that sense of embracing love. And if all you can do is love yourself, then at least you're exhibiting some kind of love, which is important. So it's acknowledging that at essence, we are beings of love. Three, there's the common goal of freedom. And when I say freedom, it works on all levels. So it can be free to let me be who I am, right? Or freedom to see that all beings are worthy of justice and possibility. And so I'm working for that freedom. So it works from the very level of self-interest to selflessness. But it's still the same idea that we want some kind of freedom to be able to be integrated people doing what we have chosen to do with a certain amount of ability without being forced by another into a way of thinking or being. Number four, an innate desire to cooperate and help. And I believe that's inbuilt into humanity. I actually believe it's inbuilt into all sentient beings, this idea that we're cooperative, that we help each other, and that's a natural thing. I've noticed many times when there's a horrific atrocity happen, then many people will come around to help and to step forward as heroes in a very selfless way. And to me, that speaks to this idea of our willingness to cooperate and help is so much greater than our competitiveness and our willingness to tear things down. So I believe that is, and perhaps I'm an idealist in that regard, but I do believe that's the case. And if we look at our society, it exists and continues to unfold because of everybody's willingness to be part of that great event, which is a complex modern society. The fifth is a societal imperative. Um, it's tantamount to our survival, because if we divide, we die, right? And we've seen this over and over, that societies may survive for a while when they're selfish, but it doesn't last. It's self-destructive. And if we want to survive, long-term survival on this planet and thrive on this planet, then we have to cooperate with each other. It's absolute necessity. And again, this is a hard one, because we still live in a tribal society. Our tribes are now countries or religious affiliations, but it's still a tribal approach, and we need to move beyond that. Again, celebrating differences, but acknowledging that we're one in truth. Number six, desire for dialogue. No matter how difficult things get, I think we're always willing somewhere to want to talk about it, to forgive, to move forward. You can hold out for a long time, but ultimately there is that desire to put that to rest, because we know innately within us that unfinished business is hurtful to ourselves, right? If we can't forgive, we can't let go, we are hurting ourselves. What do they say? Resentment is taking a poison yourself and hoping the other one will die. This is self-destructive. So we need dialogue, and interfaith is a huge part of having that dialogue. Whether there's difference and change is secondary to the fact that we can at least talk to each other. Seven, the need to shift paradigms. I kind of already mentioned this earlier in terms of tribalism versus something greater, but the shifting the paradigm is of crucial importance, I think, in our modern society, because we're reaching the level now of overpopulation, of climate change, and other stressors that are going to require paradigm change. We cannot proceed in the same manner that we have for the last couple of 100 years, because the Industrial Revolution and technology has brought us wonders, but it's also brought us to the brink of catastrophe. And so there has to be a shift there. And I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but we are part of that, folks. In Unity, we're on the cutting edge of that new paradigm, which is exciting. Number eight, peace. Just as we can't have a shifted paradigmic thinking if we don't shift our mental attitude to things, then we won't have peace either. There's going to be endless conflict, and unfortunately, we see that played out locally and nationally, internationally, conflicts all around the world. And of course, people have always been at war. I don't think there's been a time in history where there hasn't been a war. So this is a common thing, but doesn't mean it has to be an eternal thing. Second, the ultimate goal, this is the ultimate goal of Interfaith, is to overcome a sense of separation. And I mentioned that sense of separation, I think, in the first part of our series, that idea that we are separate from each other, separate from certainly other nations, other ideas. But, truth demonstrates to us that none of us are separate. We are totally interdependent. We live in a world economy. The whole vast network of the world, of the universe, is interconnected. There is no separation in truth. And so we are part of the whole. And to understand that and to truly appreciate that is to move to that next level of understanding. And then finally, deeper still, is the mystical core, which is of particular interest to me, of course, as a mystic and a metaphysician. The mystic core universality that is found in all the world's religions and connects us together. Let me take a drink of water. Oh, excuse me. What I want you to notice is that most of these statements, these 10 statements that I've just elucidated, and not to do with religion, right? But speak to the essential integrity of our humanness, our self-worth. And this is vastly important, I think, rather than begin by looking at God and with the different ways we look at God, different theological concepts. The essential core of interfaith is to look at our humanity and how we show up, the commonalities around love and connectedness and such like. So wonderful. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of a frog in my throat here. So how do we develop an interfaith approach? It begins, by the way, in our own community, in our own lives, right? In our circle of friends, in our town, and then it goes forth from there. So it has to begin locally, as the old saying from the 60s, think globally, act locally. We have to think in universal global terms, but the work begins locally. And it can begin in our own families, right? Where we connect with someone that has a different viewpoint on us, a different religious viewpoint, perhaps. There's room for interfaith work right there. So I offer 7 approaches here to develop an interfaith way of thinking, and possibly an interfaith group in your own spiritual community or in your own city or town, and ways that we can make it a successful endeavor. So here's the 7. First of all, as we've said before, accept differences. Churches, in many regards, I think, unity churches and any other church or center are like spiritual hospitals, right? And we come to those spiritual hospitals because we feel it is a safe place to be honest about ourselves, to reveal ourselves, to seek support, to seek help. And so when we're in hospital, when we have a certain need, we're very vulnerable, and sometimes that can be taken advantage of by those of us who aren't as sensitive as others, and it can be sometimes a hurtful place, you know. A spiritual hospital is a place where we often project on others because we don't want to deal with our own difficulties. And so it can be a place of hard graft sometimes to be in that community. But the work is to accept differences and not to go ape because somebody has a different viewpoint from your own, or to judge them. They're not living the unity principles, you know, etc. Which is a very judgmental way to approach it, isn't it? So to accept differences, and we can just meditate on that for months, actually. How do I do that? How do I accept differences without judgment, right? To acknowledge that I don't particularly like that behavior, but I'm not going to judge it. I'm going to see it for what it is. That person is doing the best that they can at any given time. So that's number 1. Number 2, celebrate our common humanity. As we stated earlier, there is that common humanity, and we can celebrate that. Just make that be enough. Leave God out of it for now, and just celebrate that common humanity and how it shows up. You know, we can celebrate the fact that food is on our table and it came from a multiplicity of people and circumstances. The person who grew it for us, the person who transported it to us, processed it, the person with the logistics to get it into the store, and then our ability to have abundance in a grocery store to get the food that we need. This is a shared common humanity where so many people have contributed to our well-being and our health. So thank you, God, for that, right? That is a celebration of that. Number 3, looking for commonalities and understanding. And we're reiterating some of these things that we talked about earlier, but they bear repeating because they're so essentially valuable. Look for commonalities. We may not have much in common with another person, but maybe there's one thing where we do share something, and that's where we need to emphasize, put our attention and open our hearts to that person in that regard. because sometimes miracles can happen when we can allow just a moment of connectedness to happen. We don't have to agree on everything, but there's that moment where we've shared something. And I believe in that. I think that is hugely important, to look for commonalities. Number 4, agree in practice, if not in theory. This is huge. It was years ago, I think it was Bishop Don Cupid said that we can differ in theory, but still agree on the practice. And I love that idea because, you know, theoretically, we can have all kinds of ideas, right? But when the metal hits the plate, or whatever the phrase is, when we get down to business, then that's what really counts, is what can we put into practice on any given day. And courtesy, for instance, is important. You know, if I can be courteous to somebody, regardless of who they are, I might not theoretically agree with anything that they are, but I can still be courteous. I can still be gracious. And that's a gift that I give to myself as well, because I go through life in a more peaceful way than if I'm looking for differences and finding irritation and frustration with other human beings. 5, work together on projects. I think this is a way that we transcend differences. I know many people who have taken up not just a hobby, but an interest, a focus, where they want to do something that can make a difference. And the idea of doing something simple, maybe planting a tree, going to a rally, listening to somebody, writing a letter, being part of a project that shifts ideas, makes a difference or a change in society. This can be deeply satisfying and powerful, actually. It can evoke change in the situation, in the city you're in, wherever. And so I think working on a project, and also you get to know somebody in a different way, a different context. It's not about their ideas and their theories about stuff. It's about how willing are they to practice on that, to do that project as you are doing it too. For many years, I conducted a garden day every week at our church. We had a large garden, and we would gather a garden team. And it was a joy for me as minister to just get dirty that day and get some dirt under my fingernails and do some digging and weeding and just interact with people in the community. And we didn't usually talk about spirituality. We just talked about our lives and about plants and about the weather or whatever it was. But it was a lovely thing because I always felt very close to those people because I had that connection to the earth and to the natural forces of the universe and Mother Nature, and the ability just to do something with love in a very simple way was rewarding for me. But I think it was rewarding for the team too, and we had joy in doing that. And of course, it was a project, so we saw the results. We saw that garden flowering. 6, honor the other rather than demonizing it. Yeah, this is hugely important and often very difficult because the other is often seen as the enemy, right? To be overcome, to be destroyed. And sometimes that can't happen. We're not going to be able to do that. So therefore we get very, very frustrated. We turn our frustration inwards, and it can be dangerous to our health, both physical and mental. And the idea of honoring the other and accepting the other doesn't mean I have to agree with them or enjoy their behavior or anything like that. But I am refusing to demonize the other, because I know if I do, then I have cast them out from my worldview, and I am bereft because I have left out part of me, because we're all one in spirit. So to honor the other and allow that to be okay, even in the fragmented world we live in, to acknowledge that what is happening, and it doesn't have to change right now. more important is for me to look at it clearly. I would like to see changes for horrors and atrocities, but I need to see clearly why these things are happening in the first place, so I can then go a little deeper and see what the true solution might be. Number 7, explore the perennial philosophy as it shows up in all traditions. And I love interfaith gatherings where people share prayers or poems or beautiful statements by members of that tradition. And we notice how similar they might be to our own understanding. And we can get inspiration from other great mystics and teachers of various world religions. And it can be deeply rewarding. And we've all got a list, I think, of people that inspire us, people that help us connect to that perennial philosophy of universal truth. For me, Meister Eckhart, the great Catholic mystic of the Middle Ages, is a perfect example because he is far and above one of the deepest mystics I think that's ever existed. And people have done studies on him, comparing him to the Buddhist teachers and mystics and finding extreme commonalities and resonances. And I think this is interesting that he transcended the frameworks or the structures of Christianity and got into a deep space of unity. Wonderful teachings. I encourage anybody to study a little bit about Meister Eckhart. A modern example might be Thomas Merton and his wonderful books. I love the New Seeds of Contemplation that he wrote towards the end of his life. Deep practical spirituality. Again, he transcended Catholicism for universal spirituality. In our own time, we have Richard Rohr, who's doing marvelous work on unitive thinking and providing that on a daily basis. If you join his webcast and just wonderful truth. And another one of my favorites is Ramana Maharshi, the great 19th and 20th century guru from South India. Wonderful teacher, he influenced so many people, showed up in many ways. He was one of the characters in The Razor's Edge by Somerset Maugham. He featured in other well-known documentaries. A wonderful teacher, still resonating with us today. And you can read books about him and his teachings, very simple teachings, but very profound. And he talked about self-inquiry, asking ourselves, who am I? Excuse me, there's that cough again. And I believe that that question, who am I, is one of the most profound questions we can ask ourselves, because we come to the understanding that I have a body, but I am not a body. I have a mind. I'm not just my mind. I have circumstances, but I'm not just about my circumstances. And we trace it all the way through until we come to that understanding that I am spirit. I am unlimited. I am that. I am that beauty, that joy, that possibility, which is the Christ within me. And it goes even beyond the Christ, because Christ is a label. And so I'm more than even labels. I am simply that beauty. We could call it love. We could call it infinity, but I am that. And that is our enlightened experience. So lovely stuff. Dogen, the Zen Buddhist, also wrote some magnificent teachings. And Dalai Lama, again, has been influential for many of us because of his joy and his laughter. And Thich Nhat Hanh, another Zen Buddhist, again, has written wonderful books. Lao Tzu, I was 24, I think. I'd read Lao Tzu before that, but at 24, somebody provided me with a copy of the Tao Te Ching, and I read it from beginning to end. You know, it's 81 short chapters. It's something you can read in an afternoon, but you can study it for life. It's so profound and transformed my life, I think, at that time. It was very meaningful to me. And because it's so beyond religion. It's not limited to any way of thinking. It simply is, and its deep wisdom penetrates way into your being. And that's been an endless source of inspiration for me from that time that I read it. You may have something, some text, some idea that happened at a certain time in your life, and it was like one of those, whoa, break open aha moments, yeah, when nothing was the same afterwards. And those are wonderful times, right? And then it takes a little while to integrate the inspiration that you had during that time, and that's great. We need time to have the aha, and then time to integrate it. And it's not just mystics here. We're talking about poets. We referenced in other parts of our series the inspiration of Rumi and Hafiz. Many of us love Mary Oliver because of her spirituality. John O'Donoghue, the Irish poet and writer. And it goes on. Artists can be influential in our lives. Musicians. I think of Krishna Das, and his kirtan singing is so profound and beautiful for me, and opens up my heart whenever I listen to it, and other kirtan singers. So whatever it is that connects us with other religions, with other traditions, where we find that beauty, then that's part of the work of interfaith. So I encourage you to begin an interfaith team in your own community, which begins by doing some inner work yourself. What is interfaith for you? Can I appropriate these 7 approaches I've just talked about? Do the 10 aspects of interfaith resonate with me? I hope you can go back into this this talk again and see what resonates, because that's part of the inner work we do before we even start an interfaith team. And then once we've done that work, and you may do it with a few other people, but gather together then and explore that for yourselves. What have you come to agree are the common important aspects of interfaith? And only then it may be reach out to interfaith communities or other churches or mosques or temples in your area to create interfaith. There are many interfaith groups and movements in cities throughout America, so you may be able to join one of those. But the reaching out is often a joy too, and the fact that people are interested, I think people resonate with that. Oh, they're interested in my particular path, my particular religion. This is cool, and so there's that that joy that comes from that. So I encourage you to do that, and when we do it, by the way, it's a win-win. It's a win-win for unity, and it's a win-win for those other communities, because what we're doing is coming together in love and unity. And that's really part and parcel of our unity movement, what we're endeavoring to do. Charles Fillmore never wanted to found a religion or a denomination. It was always a movement, because he welcomed all religions and all movements, all denominations, to come and deepen through their applying of the unity principles. And so we can reach out, we can fulfill that dream of Charles Fillmore by not devolving into a denomination ourselves, but remembering that we are a movement that is trans-denominational, that is universal, and reaches out to all people. So as we conclude this third part, let's enter into a time of meditation, and we'll meditate on the idea of embracing others. So let's take a moment to relax. Take a load off. Again, we've listened to a lot of stuff here. Let's put it aside and simply calmly abide. Be tranquil. And that begins with breathing. Taking a deep breath in and a relaxed breath out. I have nothing more to do than simply be present to what is right now, to simply calmly abide in this moment and find tranquility. When ideas come, they're like clouds in the sky. I let them arise. I see them floating across that sky of my consciousness. I let them go and I return to perfect stillness. I calmly abide. And from that calmness, from that open space of allowance, that sky-like feeling of spaciousness, openness, clarity, then I can begin to recollect and examine and allow my intuition to guide me. What is important for me today? Not the minutiae of my life, but what is my path? How can I extend love? How can I create a greater interfaith awareness? What is mine to do? I cannot reach out to others unless I am clear about what is mine to do, until I am clear about who I am, till I know that I have something to give. Whatever comes to you in this time of recollection is valuable for you. It is yours alone. When that awareness arises, when that insight comes to us, then we are ready to act, to live from that. And this meditation today is a very short one, but we can practice this calm abiding, an openness to insight and investigation and recollection whenever we have more time to fully go through this process and allow clarity to come into our minds so that we're able then to take action from that inspiration. There is power in doing this, in clarifying what is ours to do, and then going forth to do it. Once again, we return to stillness, giving thanks for all that we've received from the inner and the outer, all the many gifts that have come to us this lifetime, and all the good now flowing. And for all this, we say thank you to all the great way showers for their guidance, to the spirit of love within us, for the omnipresence of God, and for the perfect peace that transcends all human understanding that is now our birthright. And so it is. Amen. So thank you so much once again for being with me for part 3. And in part 4, we'll look at how to have a direct experience of the truth. Join me then. Bye-bye now. So hello there, I'm Paul John Roach.
Thanks for watching the weekly broadcast from Unity of Fredericksburg. Visit our website, uofva.org, to learn more about our mission of spiritual awakening and transformation, and support our ministry with your financial donation.